Okay, to add in another screen isn't really possible if you're using a boolean to control which screen you're at. So let's take that out, and instead we'll put in an enum, an enumerator. The enum basically lets you define an identifier for something, which is basically going to be a number, but that number is given a name. So 0 is game over, 1 is game play, and 2 is pause screen. But we don't just access game state directly, because you can reuse that. So it's like a class almost. You can create a game state, which we're going to call current game state. And we'll initialize it, so we start in the game over screen. Now we're going to have some errors now when I try and build it. Control Shift B, it's looking for game over, which we took out. So we're going to replace that with a switch. Switch current game state, and in the case that we are at game state game over, sorry, gameplay, beg your pardon, that is when we will run update gameplay. And the switches, don't forget, you need to break each one, and you'll only need that. In the case of game state dot game over, I'm going to update the game over screen. Break. And finally, in the case of game state dot paused, I'm going to update pause screen, which doesn't exist yet. Oops, why have I put brackets in there? And break. Pause screen doesn't exist. Let's generate it. And when you get to update game over screen, instead of saying game over equals false, when you press P to start a game, you say current game state becomes gameplay. So we change to the gameplay state. During the update of the game, we can also go to game over equals true when you run out of lives, and again that would be instead current game state changed to game over. So we're switching the game state depending on what happens during the execution of the code. How many things I've still got to fix here? Oh yeah, another switch for the draw. So in case of gameplay, we draw gameplay and break. In case of game over, we draw game over and break. Case of game state dot paused, draw pause screen and break. That's going to replace this, and of course we will need a pause screen. Right, I think that should have fixed it. Hopefully everything's still running smoothly. But we can't go to the pause screen, and if we did it would crash because all it does is throw an exception. So let's go to update pause. And instead, if keyboard.getState is key down, keys.p. So when the P key is pressed, when you're at the pause screen, we should come out of the pause screen. So current game state goes back to gameplay. You could also muck about with the music there as well, change the music when you go into pause or come out of pause if you want. And the pause draw, of course we need sprite batch dot draw. Whoop, wrong sprite batch. We need sprite batch dot end. We need to draw a background image. Let's copy that from here. And we'll probably draw some text as well. Let's copy and paste this. Why did I put draw there? That should have been begin. But the text we're going to draw is now, we're going to let the player know it's paused. Press P to resume. Right, so at least it won't crash when we go into the pause screen. But how do we get to the pause screen? Well, during the gameplay, we check if the keyboard status tells us that the P key is pressed down. P to pause, P to unpause. And if it is, then current game state equals game state dot paused. So P will take us into paused from there. And that will kind of work. That's because each screen is just checking if the P key is held down. What we need to do is detect whether the P key is down right now, but it wasn't down one frame ago. To do that, you need to keep a copy of the keyboard state from one frame to the next. Old or previous key state. And that needs to be updated. So let's go to the update. But it should be done as the last thing. So previous keys equals keyboard.getState. So we get the status and store it as previous keys after we've done everything we want to with the current set of keys. So now we can say if you press the P key and the previous frame of keys, the key was up, it was not held down. Do that also for the way in as well. And hopefully we should have now 3 different game states. Oh, what have I done wrong? Missing a bracket. Or too many brackets, in fact. Yeah. We're getting there. I think that's all for now, and I'll recap shortly.